For those of you who are always complaining that my video reviews run too long, or you dislike the fact that I have really long run-on commentaries, you're finally getting your wish. This review is going to be broken down into two pieces. The first video will be detailing the individual modes and the functions thereof. And the second video, believe it or not, is going to be dedicated exclusively to my opinions and the conclusions that I've drawn as I've interacted with this toy. Yeah, the conclusion runs that long that I actually had to break it up into its own individual video. That's crazy even for me. So if you like watching my extended commentaries, make sure you check out the second video. If you don't like the commentaries, you can just finish up with this first video. Either way, I hope you enjoy it. I don't think very much of the Goju drill, so I'm just going to get it out of the way. Plus, it's where you start with the toy, so might as well. Honestly, I don't have a strong opinion of the Goju drill. A lot of people have said, and I kind of sort of agree with them on it, that it is more or less a half-assed mode. You're just folding the legs around and the limbs are placed in certain places, and that's it. Nothing really important happens here. What makes the Goju drill work for me, though, actually isn't the drill itself, but rather the conversion process between Goju Rex and Goju Jin, which is essentially the same thing. You're just messing with the legs a little bit, flipping the arms around, and then that's it. So in a way, this adds a little bit of variety to the toy. Being a triple changer makes things a little more interesting. If it had just gone between beast mode and robot mode, you know, there isn't really much happening there, and you probably would have heard me complain that it didn't do more interesting things. And so I kind of think of Goju Drill as kind of filling up a gap. It doesn't do very much by itself, yes, but it does make the toy overall more interesting. Now, let's be clear here. Just about every super robot show out there has some sort of a drill attack feature to it. Sometimes this appears as a drill bit that pops out, you know, the hand retracts into the forearm and then a drill bit pops out. Or a vehicle or spaceship of some kind attaches to it and provides something. But drill tanks are not an uncommon thing to have, and a lot of super robot shows have them. But they are called drill tanks for a reason, because they share a lot of similar things. They often have tractor treads on them, or, you know, once in a while maybe they have little wheels. And most of them have, well, a spinning drill bit of some kind. You know, that's kind of it. So, you know, the problem with the drill bit, though, on a drill tank is that the drill bit is often smaller than the profile of the vehicle itself, which kind of negates the point if something's going to burrow underground, because what happens when the rock brushes up against the cockpit or these things back here. So, you know, this has happened before many, many times. This is nothing new. Sometimes a company will try and mix things up by putting two drill bits on the same tank, because that's loads better. In one particular case, it wasn't a vehicle that had drill bits on it, but rather an animal, which actually had 4 drill bits, and ironically didn't actually drill underground. So, you know, exception to the rule. And sometimes a drill tank won't even have a drill, or be a tank. But it'll have something on it that spins and allows it to dig underground. You know, this is, like I said, drill tanks come in many sizes, shapes, and varieties, so this is nothing new, nothing particularly special, and honestly, I've never thought very much of drill tanks, so it is what it is. It adds a little bit of variety to the Goju Jin set. So I'm just going to leave it at that. There is, however, one little issue that I have with the Goju drill. It's nothing to do with the toy itself, okay? Everything here works out just fine, okay? It's a nice, solid toy. It's a little loose in the connection point right there, but whatever. But that's not my problem. Here's my question. What in the hell does the Goju drill have to do with Mirai Sentai Time Ranger? If you'll think back all the way to the distant year of 2000, the emergency system mecha from Time Ranger were all futuristic jets. That's all that they were. And, you know, this big jet breaks down into 5 smaller ones, and that's it. And then it had 2 robot modes. The Time Shadow was a giant flying bomber which came out of an eclipsed moon, which was absolutely badass. But, again, jet mode, robot mode, combined form, that was it. Now, of course, the sole exception was the V-Rex, which nobody on this planet liked, toy form or in the series. But if you were to say that the Goju Rex represents the V-Rex, then you would be wrong, because the Goju Rex actually represents Zyuranger, which I'll be getting to in a moment here. So, what exactly does the Goju drill have to do with time travel? That's the thing I don't get. How is this a tribute to Time Ranger, other than the fact that it travels through time and that it's repaired and maintained in the future? There's a serious disconnect here. I don't get it. I don't see anything here. I do not see anything here that visually ties it into anything that has to do with Time Ranger. You know, where's the connection? I genuinely, truly do not get it. So in that department, as a tribute, other than visual effects in the show, it very much falls flat on its face as a tribute to a previous Super Sentai series. Oh man. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot tell you how enthusiastic I was when I first saw the production photos for this thing in, was it May or June of this year. This thing just, oh, I don't know what it was, but it was just so incredible. This mode is just mind-blowing. I can't even keep it contained, and I'm just going to babble for about 20 minutes here. I love it, 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 I love it. And then, even though a couple months later from when it was initially released, I finally got it. I opened it up, I put it together, and I don't know what it was, but I just wanted to start jumping around! Now, there's two big things that make this work for me. The first one is I love the proportions and the contours that happen in this mode. It just flows naturally. It has a very natural, real animal world appearance and flow to it. The spine, if you can call it that, the body is, you know, it has this little bend right here, and the head is pointed down in such a way. Yeah, you can put the head up. You can even point it all the way up if you want to. But why does it do that? You can do it like this, it looks fine. You can do it like this, it looks like fine. You can point it down like that, and he looks like frickin' Godzilla. I mean, that's awesome. The legs are nice, big, and chunky, just like a mechanical kaiju should be. The arms are proportionately small, which makes me wonder, is this a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a tribute to the Dragon Caesar, which, hello, how could it not be a tribute to the Dragon Caesar? Or is it supposed to be a tribute to the big G himself, Godzilla, because he's got these extra bony plates sitting on his back? The shape of the head kind of suggests it. And, oh, by the way, the Dragon Caesar is an acknowledged homage and tribute to Godzilla. And since it has a twirling tail on it, I guess, you know, this probably is some sort of fictitious dragon of some kind. Albeit one that stands, what does it say, 300-400 feet tall, which is just wow, by the way. So the proportions of it is something that works. Nothing here is too big or too small. Nothing here is located in the wrong place. It just fits together so well. The only place where this nice flow of continuity is ruined is probably right here. Is this section right here. It doesn't quite work. It just kind of comes to a stop, and then it just does something else for the tail. So, yeah, I guess so. So that's not a problem right there. Now, the other thing that makes the Goju Rex a big winner in my book is the unprecedented level of articulation just in this mode. Not even the Goju Jin, the full Robo combined form, whatever it is, which a Super Sentai Robo usually does. But in the Beast mode that it has, the animal form that it has superior articulation to it. And I'm not just talking about the hands here, which just drive me absolutely bananas for the fact that this thing has individually articulated fingers. It would have been awesome just to have, you know, have these open and close, but then the thumb can open and close, and then just to blow your mind that much more, each of the fingers is individually articulated. That's insane crazy. And you know what I love about that? It's completely unnecessary. What exactly is the Goju Rex going to hang on to? And the answer is absolutely nothing. The posability in the fingers is there just for the hell of it, and God bless you, Bandai, for giving us that. God bless you. or whatever the term is over in Japan. You know, just, oh, bless you. I want to shake your hand. Seriously, that is genius. PVC? I got no problem with that. Hell, they gave it to us. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to complain at all. That is not a problem. And then moving on, we have elbows. Again, completely unnecessary. The arms could have been ramrod straight, and that would have been it. But no, they decided to give us articulation in the elbows. They could have done this easily enough. But again, it's a joint which is completely unnecessary, and they gave it to us. Wow. Absolute, unquestioned wow. Or they could have had it go the other way and just had this bend at 90 degrees and not been straight, but had it molded at 90 degrees all the time. So they could have done it that way too, but instead they gave us elbow articulation. It's only 2 positions, but again, thank you, Bandai. Thank you so much for giving us that. The head is a little tricky to work with if you want to pose it, not because it twists around like that. Let me wind this up a little bit. Not because it turns, but because you actually do have to play around with it with the motor. I'm actually taking advantage of that clicking that it does, the lockup. So you actually can get it to pose into this position, and then you can open up the jaw, okay? And if you want to, okay, that's the one thing, well, okay, I'll get to that in a moment. You actually can get the head to turn. Let's see, I'll do it this way. You actually can get the head to pose to the side like that. How many Super Sentai dragons, Tyrannosaurs, whatever, can you think of that could do that? Off the top of my head, I can only think of one that could actually do that. So, yeah, very much appreciated. And you know what? I don't mind having the head pointed downwards like that. Yeah, it's part of the transformation for the Goju drill, but, you know, it looks good like this, but I don't mind having it that way either. So, you know, again, awesome. And then the legs. Oh, the legs. We've had posability in the legs like this before. We've actually had it in the sub-mecha modes. I actually have a couple of them, so I can demonstrate this for you. It actually started back in 1992 with Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, which obviously this mode is the tribute to. We got the Tyrannosaurus, which again had posable hips, knees, and ankles, but it was all strictly for transformation. Well, technically this is too, but whatever. The only problem with it was you couldn't tilt the legs back because then it unhinged this. You couldn't lock it down. You could pose it, and it was awesome. So, you know, this was cool. Also, that same year, we got the Dragon Caesar. Just ignore the lightning bolts, just ignore the lightning bolts, just ignore the lightning bolts, which had posable hips and knees there. But, in this case, it was strictly for transformation, okay? That folded only for the transformation so it could make room for this little door so you could fold it up, okay? That's the only reason that the knee could move. I never could figure out why it is, though, that it actually ratcheted up that second position there. Oh, well, you could actually pose with it, okay? Wasn't much, but it was something. Oh, speaking of the Dragon Caesar, that little tail, puny little thing which never held straight after a while. Yeah, right there. We finally got it. We finally got it. And then, of course, we had the Bakuryu Tyranno. Actually, screw that. I'm going to use the Carnilatus instead. So anyways, these were all transformation joints, but there was actually additional clicking points in here which were clearly meant to be used, not in the hips, but definitely in the knees and the ankles, which were unquestionably used for posability. You couldn't do much with this mode, but you could actually get it into some interesting positions. You could actually play around with it a bit. Chicken walker, I guess. It was an option. Oh yeah, and then it had the mechanical tail thing that could turn. So there was also that. Oh yeah, and there's also the coloring scheme, and actually they both have rather badass looking heads. Anyways, yeah, there was that. And then, of course, who could possibly forget about the Magi Dragon with its stubby little affairs? The only reason it has knee joints and hip joints is so that it can go from, let me think here, so that it can go from straight to angled forward for the Dragon mode. Okay, so technically they are for transformation purposes, but it was possible to pose them. Even got a little bit of posability out of the arms and the neck and the head too. So, truth be told, this is about almost as posable as this is, except for the fingers, of course. But, you know, still, badass posability right there. And, by the way, this is the last of the good posability that we had on a Super Sentai Robo in an animal form since. So, 2005 to 2011. This thing is so awesome even 8 years later. Wait, is that right? 7 years later. My bad. 6 years later. Ugh, it's getting late. Anyways, yeah, this thing's awesome. And you know what? The Goju Rex is also very awesome. It's got a lot of good things going for it. It's got posability, it's got good proportions, and you know what? The color scheme isn't all that bad either. Like I said earlier, this thing is beast. Okay, now I'm going to go spend a couple of minutes gushing about the Goju Jin. I mentioned it a little while ago, but it definitely is worth bringing up again. I totally love the color scheme on this thing. I don't know where they got it from, but I want every giant robot in the world to be colored like this. It's such an original color scheme. I just love it. I mean, it's mostly dark blue, but then it's got, you know, generous portions of dark gray, which is always nice to have around. And then it doesn't go overboard with adding silver. I mean, it's not supposed to represent light gray. This is supposed to be silver highlights here and here. And then it doesn't go crazy with the gold either. I mean, the feet are probably the most offensive part there. And, you know, you can totally tell that this is just plain old ABS plastic as opposed to being all the other gold which was painted. Except for that right there. But then it totally blows me away by adding this little bit of light blue here. It's kind of metallic light blue, and just a little bit of it. And even then, they're only using it for the logo of Gokai Silver, you know, the anchor and the spear and things like that. There's a little bit of red, which is really nice, and then just totally out of nowhere, green eyes. And you know, I was like, you know, this is just, I don't know why, but the color scheme works here really, really well. It doesn't have to be an all-silver mecha, an all-gold mecha. It doesn't have to be green or whatever the base color of the 6th Ranger is. No, it could be a completely different color, and it doesn't have to have a majority of coloring of Gokai Silver. It just works really well. I don't know why, but it's great. So, yeah, I'm totally in love with this coloring scheme, and I want them to do it again. At least that's what I was thinking initially when I opened this and started playing around with it. And then a day and a half later, I looked at my shelves and, oh yeah, they've totally done it before. It does seem strange that you would have two dinosaur-themed tributes in the same toy, and yet only one of them is attributed to the Goju Rex. Well, the thing is, the reason it's called Ju Ranger is because it had more than dinosaurs in it. I mean, it had a couple of mammals, and it even had a giant dragon. You know, that's just how that worked out. So it does seem unusual, then, that Goju Jin should be attributed to Aba Ranger, which had nothing but dinosaurs. So you end up looking at it from the perspective that this is not supposed to be representative of the individual Bakuryu, but rather it's supposed to be attributed to the Abareno, and, of course, the evil repaint Bakureno. Because, well, you know, it does kind of have an extra weapon built into it over here with the Trident mode and the Shield mode. But really, the big tributes are, it's got an extra Tyrannosaurus head sticking out, Tyrannosaurus dragon, whatever it is over here. You've got that. You've got a drill arm, which is perhaps the biggest connection between them. And then, speaking of big, you also have the big dinosaur feet hanging out. So, even though the Goju Jin itself does not have any dinosaur tributes to it other than the hand here, which, by the way, looks really awkward with these things sticking out. I wish that it had, as opposed to flipping around, I wish that it had shifted like this so that it would still be facing forward, it would still be pointing that way, because that's just a little awkward to work with. But anyways, yeah, it doesn't make much sense for the humanoid robot form to be a tribute to the all-dinosaur-themed series, but, you know, the drill arm and the big feet thing was just an impossible thing to ignore. I really, really like those spring-powered motors on a couple of different levels. First off, it's very old school because you didn't have electric motors as early as, 20 years ago in Super Sentai. I think, if I remember correctly, the first time they used electric motors in Super Sentai Toys was the DX King Brachion and Jew Ranger in 1992. Pre-Power Ranger stuff, I don't think they ever had wind-up motors of any kind. And while, yes, they have had spring-powered motors before, this was actually the first and only time until now that they've actually had spring-powered motors before. This thing was a POS, at least for me. The one that I got, this thing almost never behaved itself properly because it would lock up when you didn't want it to, and it wouldn't lock up when you wanted it to. It was very, very confusing. It just, at least the one that I have, I mean, maybe it was quality control issues and I lucked out on that. But I just really, really like the way this thing is handled. It won't over-tighten because there's actually an internal release mechanism which you have no control over and will just disengage by default without breaking. By contrast, you can actually do it the other direction too, in that I'm going to get this thing up to speed. Now that's the safety feature kicking in just because there's so much mass here that it has to stop. You'll even hear it here, listen. It clicks about 2-3 times right there. And that is, you can position this anywhere you want to. See, officially with Goju-jin himself, it's supposed to be like this. Okay, it's proportioned like this. But then, when the Goju Rex and the Goju Drill, it's supposed to be like this. And so this toy allows you to be discriminate in that way. You can have it this way, you can have it this way, because it has that disengaging feature in it. Yeah, same thing applies over here, because it actually does shift about when you turn the head. I don't know why it is it does that, but it does it, and it's kind of annoying. So, having the motors, while I'm in the region, having the motors tied in Goju-jin mode with the thing back here, that's awesome. I got to bring that up. Having it do that is actually a nice alternative, and I'm actually glad, because a wind-up motor, you can do that preposition thing. You can let it sit there for a few seconds, and it does its thing, and it's really cool. It's not a crankshaft motor, and it's not really loose, and you turn it by yourself. I mean, that's a safety feature for the protection of the motor, less so for the convenience of who's playing with it. I mean, let's be honest about that. A lot of people were initially wondering why it is that they would go with spring-powered motors in here, when originally we had the exact same thing here happen on the Abareno. Oh, wow. Oh, right, this is the US version. Where is it? I don't know why they put that there. That was stupid. Just keep it up here. It was an unnecessary change. Anyways, a lot of people were wondering, well, they've had an electric powered motor sitting inside the torso before. But honestly, aside from how it's finally designed, get this thing open, aside from how it's designed, or how it's designed here, obviously you wouldn't have enough space in here. But I think the reason they did it is so that when you make Goju Gokaio, you can use the spinning arm feature there as well. You wouldn't be deprived of having the two arms spin. So I think it was a combination of those things that had them eventually lead up to having spring-powered motors sitting in there. Now, surely, Ava, there's got to be something about this awesome little thing you found over here that you dislike. Well, now that you mention it, yeah, I do have a couple of things I've got a problem with. While I appreciate what they're trying to do with these dome-shaped things here, you know, they don't really cover up a lot, and they basically get in the way of the other two modes. So, yeah, I appreciate the effort, and they kind of look interesting, but honestly, I kind of wish they'd done something different with that. I mean, I know it's small because it has to get out of the way of the tail with Goju Rex, and then they just get covered up in Goju-jin mode. But I wish they'd been a little bigger or had a different design to them or something. Because, you know, honestly, it's just filler, but it's not convincing filler. Okay, so that's my big problem here. The other problem lies with the drill tail thingy. And that is, if you look at the Bakureno's tail here, which, yes, by the way, this thing is compatible with Bakuryu joints, even though the motorized function doesn't work. Anyways, the thing that bothers me is you can see here the tail is symmetrical from, above, sides, bottom. It looks the same on the top as it looks the same on one side as it does on the other, okay? Bottom, top, okay, we'll talk. Okay, that's not a problem. Here's the problem, though. And by the way, this is actually more sturdy than Bakureno's tail is. You'll see here now, the drill works fine. From here forward, everything works fine. It's just fine. Yeah, these look kind of stupid, but I can understand the need for them to be there. Anyways, looks fine from above. Looks fine from this side. But then you've got this huge joint gap thingy under here, and it looks fine from underneath as well. It's an asymmetrical. It looks different from one side compared to the other. That's something that is really bothersome when it comes to the Goju drill, is that it's got this asymmetry to it right in the front here. Everything else works fine, but it's got that problem right there. Again, symmetry is not an issue with the Bakureno's tail, or the Abareno's tail. It doesn't really matter. Symmetry. One side looks good, and the other side. But then, well, by the way, I absolutely hate this panel right here, because you have to go digging for it. Which is completely unnecessary. It should just snap to the two positions instead of having that stupid little tab under there. So I have to go digging for it each and every time. And of course, when you're putting it in, it relatches itself, which is really, really annoying. That's probably the most annoying part of this whole toy. Then, you got to put these back up, which I already discussed earlier. So, yeah, I hate that lever thing. That's annoying. That's probably the worst part of the whole toy. Again, asymmetry. This side looks great. If you look at it from this side, no problem. You look at it from this side, and what the hell is that? Well, here's where things get interesting as far as that's concerned. In order to transform between Goju Drill, Goju Rex, and Goju Jin, all you do is that. Okay, that's it. That's the only difference between them. Now, here's the thing, though. The shoulder armor is the part that moves. That I have no problem with, okay? It's how they execute everything in here, because look, there's two separate joints. And by the way, if you look in there carefully, see that little square? That's the pressure button for the Goju Jin mode. When it pushes in on that, this thing will turn without having to push this. Anyways, I have no problem with the transformation process. What I do have a problem with is when they have two separate holes for everything. Here's why I've got the bugaboo about it. With the Bakuryu joints, the transformation process was actually slightly different. Again, everything pivots. It's not just shoulder armor that's bending up and down, but it's actually the whole shoulder assembly, and it preserves the thingy in here. I think they should have built the Goju Jin's tail assembly like this. At least as far as the shoulder, you could preserve this thing in here by having it turn like that. And what the Goju Jin cannot do is it would have had an extra amount of shoulder articulation as opposed to just forward and backward like this. You could actually have it turn inside and out like that. So that was a bit of a problem that I had with the Goju Jin's tail. Like I said, I don't mind that that's how it transforms, but it's the functionality. It's having two holes there. It's completely unnecessary. I don't know. Maybe they had a problem with it in how much space the motor took up. That's really the only thing I can think of why they did it this way. So, yeah, that's a disappointment. Something bothered me about the transformation process, not just for the tail, but for the Goju Rex's arms. The transformation process is you take this off, straighten that out, and then you attach it back here. That's all well and good, because you have to get those arms out of the way, and honestly, it's not kibble, blah, 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 blah. I have no real problem with that. Here's my problem with it, though. Why isn't there a panel that flips that around like that to cover up the hole? Why do you have to take this off? Why is this a separate piece altogether? The reason I bring this up is because on the DX Gao Hunter, they successfully did it. It covers up the hole like it should be, and then it can be stored off to the side. And look at that. It's still connected. You didn't have to take it apart, and the joint is perfectly preserved. There was a reason why this puzzled me, though, is because I have to carefully do this. I don't want to intentionally break my toy. This was designed to pop off for safety reasons, but then it had that little cord in there, which never made any sense to me. But I'm being oh, I have to be real careful here. There we go. That makes some sense. I wish that the Gojujin had been able to do that. The only reason I can think of that it would do that is because there might be, this is a guess, there might be a way for the Gojujin to interact with, the Goju Rex, or the Gojujin, or even the Goju Drill, to interact with another Super Sentai tribute later on. This already has 3 tributes built into it, Time Ranger, Abba Ranger, and Ju Ranger. But I'm wondering if Gokai Silver is not going to be getting another great Legend Sentai great power. The reason I think this, well, there's actually a couple reasons. One, why would you have posable fingers in here? Bandai is not that generous. Same thing with the elbows. Bandai is not that generous. There must be a method to their madness, because these 2 things right here probably increase the price of it like $30 or something, okay? This is very, very subtle, but there's actually 2 things. First off, when you put the Goju Rex's arm here, look at this. It's not just the arm that's doing the twisting, but this connection point here, these ratchet. These rotate here. Why would those turn? There's no reason for it to whatsoever, because you can get to this, you can get to the dial easily enough in this mode. Well, here's why I'm thinking this. It's real subtle. It's very subtle. But there's no paint. Jesus. Sorry about that. I got interrupted. That was incredibly rude. The reason I think this, first off, this section in here, these 2 little platelets here are not painted in, as opposed to here and here where they are painted in. And the other thing, and this is much more subtle, is what's this little hole here for? And again on the other side, these little square holes. There's no tabs or screws or anything like that. The screw for it is actually right there, and then there's another one on the inside here. What are these holes here for? They're not for manufacturing, I can tell you that. So that's why I think that something is going to attach to the back of the Gojujin or Goju Rex. Maybe it'll have something to do with the additional posability in the elbows and the fingers. I'm not sure about those 2, but definitely, why does it have a ratcheting joint here, and why does it have this extra hole here? I think something in a future upgrade is going to attach to the back here. That's not a complaint, but it is a mystery with the toy. Oh my good God, could you imagine something more badass than that on a Super Sentai toy? I mean, seriously, that'd be amazing. If I'm not much mistaken, there have been a number of times in Super Sentai, at least 10 that I can think of off the top of my head, where a combined form, not the individual sub-mecha components, but where a combined form had hips, knees, and ankle joints in the right places, but unfortunately failed to deliver. And there have been some really close calls. Now, of course, all this articulation in the legs, which we've always wanted, was strictly due to how the toy transformed. You know, they had to have an excuse to justify why the joints were there in the first place. A perfect example of this, where they reached the finish line but failed to actually cross it, was the Abareno. Yeah, I know, it's not the Abareno. Shut up. The Tyrannosaurus did have opposable ankle. Multiple positions, by the way, in each direction. It ratcheted numerous times. But the Abareno, the combined form here, no posability, because this thing gets in the way. Missed opportunity right there. So close. Again, with the hips. You actually had to transform a little bit. The reason let's see. Yes, it does have hips in Tyranno mode, but it's these little arms that got in the way in Abadano mode. Won't let it turn. You could actually cheat and fold that forward, and it would give you, it would give you posability in the right direction, okay? So that was a possibility, but unfortunately you couldn't put the, was it the Terra, would not fit right there. It also looked real ugly because you had this little arm sticking out here. And also, again, with the Tyranno, posable knee, okay, yeah, it folded forward, I don't know why. Posable knee, alright? But then, Abadano mode, well, you would get that. That was really the only legitimate posing you got with the Abadano. You wanted to be weird, you could push it forward. So, again, perfect example, missed opportunity. They got this close, and then they tripped just before they reached the finish line. So, missed opportunity, missed opportunity. And this has happened numerous times in Super Sentai. Whenever the opportunity presented itself, they just failed miserably right at the end. And so now we have the Goju Jin. Hips, knees, ankles. Here's the problem with it, though. This also applies to the Goju Rex's head as well. Here's the problem, though. Listen carefully. It doesn't ratchet into any positions. Okay, better example. It only snaps into 2 positions, and that's it. So, yes, while we get the articulation that we want or need, I wish these could fold backwards a little. While we get the articulation that we need, we don't quite get the articulation that we want, because it only ratchets into 2 positions, and that's it. It only ratchets to this and this. And so what you can do, what I've been doing, and I did it with the text and picture review over on CollectionDX.com, and I just did it right here, you actually can, there's just enough friction between the 2 positions that each of these joints snaps to, they actually can get it into a number of different positions before it snaps into its final position. So yes, we get the range of articulation we want, but we don't get the multi-position ratcheting, which is, I guess you could call it bittersweet. We got the posability we want, but we don't have the multi-angle ratcheting that we need in order to really make it stick. So far we've had just 45 degrees in the shoulders. It'd be nice if it was more than 45 degrees, but I'm going to leave that alone. At least it's not 90 degrees, you know. They leave a little something in there for us to play around with each year. So that is, like I said, that is kind of a bittersweet thing, and that also applies to the head with the Goju Rex, because you have to kind of play around with, you actually have to play around with the motor inside. It only snaps to 2 positions. You also have to do that with the jaw, because you actually have to pull it back quite a bit in order for it to stick. So we got the posability we wanted, finally. And, oh yeah, by the way, there's just enough give in the head that it'll actually tilt it backwards a little bit. So, posability, yay. One thing kind of puzzles me, though. There's actually 2 things that puzzle me. First off, what is this little panel here for? Anybody? What's that there for? I don't know. And here's the other thing, though. Initially, when I saw the pictures for the Goju Jin, I saw that this panel flipped down. And I thought, oh my god, this thing's going to have its own Legend Sentai Great Powers that'll fit into the chest. You close this up, you twist the thing in the back, and this thing's going to pop open, and these things are going to spin all at the same time, and it'll be one of the most awesome gimmicks we ever saw. It'll probably be more awesome than it was on the Go-Kaio. Okay? As it turns out, that's not the case at all. As it turns out, it was just to make room for the head, and that was it. Bit disappointing, that. So here's my question. Why does this come off? Anybody? Don't tell me it's for safety features, because they could easily have built this thing as a single piece, and they could have made it pop off right there, okay? But it pops off in exactly the same fashion as it does on the Go-Kaio. I don't understand why they did that. And I don't know why it is it's got that little give in it, but I'm kind of glad, because you can actually get it into some running poses if you're careful with it, and if you play with the joints carefully enough, you actually can get it into a running pose, or I'm ready to charge at you pose. Oh, and by the way, why does he have a little dinghy sticking out the front there? It makes a nice cockpit, but it's a cockpit? Why would you put it there? Why not put it up in the head? Oh, well. And so that should be it for the DX Gojujin. No, wait. There's one more thing. Oh, this is cool. Okay, there's one more thing I gotta bring out. Check this out. Back in 2002, Bandai released a MOOC that was called Super Sentai Robo Art Collection, or something along those lines. And it had official drawings and concept images for all of the Super Sentai robos and vehicles all the way from 1975 to 2002, about the midway point for Ninpu Sentai Hurricaneer. So you had everything in there, and it was all official drawings that were made during their individual production years. And unfortunately, I don't have that MOOC. I very much like to get it. It is from this MOOC, by the way, that we get the official listings of all 100 power animals from Gaoranger. But that's not the thing I want to bring up. The thing I want to bring up is that there's actually a small section dedicated to Power Rangers. Now, of course, all of the Zord designs come from 1992 and go on from there. However, there is a kind of a dirty little secret of the second season of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and it is what is known as Ju 2. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1 is on the air, and it has just skyrocketed into a global phenomenon, okay? Nobody knew it was going to be this big, okay? It was going to be a 1, maybe a 2-year thing, and that was it. End of story. But no, it got so big that Saban Entertainment literally didn't know what to do with themselves. They're kind of running around with like chickens with their heads cut off. And about halfway through Season 1, Saban realizes that they're running out of fighting footage from Zyuranger, in 92. They only had, 48 or 50 episodes to play around with it, and they've pretty much used up all of it as far as the first season is concerned. Well, they wanted to continue on with it, and they wanted to continue on with it to maintain continuity. They didn't want to just then start up the switching of the suits and everything every single year like Super Sentai has. And so the dirty little secret is a project which is known as Ju 2. Ju 2 was Toei, who films the Super Sentai series, each and every one of them. They would film brand new original footage of the Zyuranger suits and the clay monsters. We call them putties in Power Rangers, but that's not what they were called. I can't remember what they're called in Zyuranger. Anyways, they would film brand new fight sequences in brand new locations, which were never in Zyuranger itself. And they would also create brand new monster suits, which also were not seen in Zyuranger. So basically, they're just throwing monsters and stuff together, even though it made no sense. There was no plot behind it. It's just, here's a monster, here's the Ranger suits, have them fight for a little bit, that's it. Well, here's the other half of the Ju 2 project. Concept drawings were provided in that Super Sentai Robo Art Collection MOOC that prove that a brand new version of the Daizujin, the MMPR Season 1 Megazord, was going to be made for Power Rangers Season 2. Brand new. It was not going to be the Thunder Megazord. It was not going to be the White Tiger Zord. It was going to be a brand new Mighty Morphin Megazord, okay? It was going to have kind of similar transformation process to it, and it was going to have all of the same animals. So you're going to have a T-Rex, Triceratops, Saber-tooth Tiger, Mastodon, Pterodactyl. I don't think they had the Dragon Caesar in there, so I'm not sure about that, because, well, it's not in the pictures. Maybe someone else can tell me? I don't know. I'm only referencing, I only know what's in this MOOC, and what other people have told me. It was going to transform in a similar way. Saber-tooth Tiger, Triceratops become the legs, Mastodon becomes the arms, blah, 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 blah. So, why have I taken so long to bring up all this? What happened is, one of the concepts for this Ju 2 Megazord is that the Tyrannosaurus's tail was going to separate, and it was going to do one of two things. It was going to become a drill arm for the right arm. It's going to attach to the right arm, and it was going to become a big old drill arm. And then the other thing it was going to do is it was going to split down the middle, so it's going to split in half, and then it was going to become a longbow that would shoot like energy lightning bolts and such. Now, obviously, we never got the Ju 2 Megazord. That never happened. However, we did definitely get the drill arm. The red Tyrannosaurus drill arm. We eventually got that. And, you know, a lot of people were like, oh yeah, it looks like the Ju 2 Megazord. So we got that. And now, obviously, the Goju Jin has a drill arm as well, okay? Because it is, after all, the Abarenu tribute. Well, here's the interesting part. The crossbow for the Ju 2 Megazord looked an awful lot like, well, it looked like the Abarenu's drill, just, you know, split in half, but drill tail split in half. Now, obviously, this is shield mode, which, yeah, it did have a drill that could spin. I don't know if it was motorized or whatnot, but it did definitely have that crossbow feature. It would actually hang on to it, pull its arm back, and it would do that. But, you know, holy crap. What it didn't do was the Trident mode. And by the way, Trident mode, okay, whatever. Shield mode, I wish they put some different details in there, but whatever. I'm just glad that we even got it. That's pretty cool. Wish it had done this in the show. That's cool, too. So, yeah, in closing, yeah, we kind of sort of got the Ju 2 Megazord's drill tail split apart thing. That ending was a little awkward, and I was doing pretty well there. Oh, well. I'd say that the rest of this commentary has been going pretty well, so, you know what, I'd rather do that than have to do the whole thing all over again, you know? Wow, I have talked and talked and talked and talked. And not just here, but also on the text and picture review over on CollectionDX.com. Prometheum 5, who is our copy editor for CollectionDX.com, when I sent my email over to him saying, hey, can you please edit this review because I want to have it up inside of a week or whatever it is, I said, just make sure that you have like a free afternoon or something, because my conclusion over on the text and picture review is also, if I'm not much mistaken, my longest conclusion that I've ever had in the 7 years that I've been working with CollectionDX.com. And so it seems only fitting that the video review should reflect this by having perhaps the longest commentary I have ever done in a video review. So long, in fact, that I actually had to break this video review up into 2 separate videos. One for just reviewing the modes and the details therein, and then another video just for the conclusion. That is just crazy. I have never had to do that. But you know what? I think this is completely, totally, and utterly worth it. And I'll tell you why. I have not been this enthusiastic for a DX Super Sentai toy since 2006, the previous anniversary series. It has been that long since I got like really excited about a DX Super Sentai toy. To put this into perspective with you, this was the last toy, the DX Daiboken, that I was really, really, really excited about getting. Like, I had to have that thing no matter what. The Siren Builder, the Dai Voyager, the Dai Tonkin combination, those things were not as great as this was. And as a matter of fact, it was those accessories and secondary robos and things like that that actually showed the flaws that exist in this toy. But when I initially got this, it was one of the most incredible things I'd ever seen. Yeah, the arms were a little small. But like I said, this is the last time that I was really enthusiastic about a DX Super Sentai toy. This right here. The 2 weapons it came with, not so much. Yeah, I was pretty interested in the DX Shinkino, but it had a lot more cracks and flaws to it than the DX Daiboken. Like the Daiboken, it took all the other accessories and stuff to point out its flaws. The DX Shinkino, just the flaws are immediately apparent, and it just kind of flawed on its own without having to worry about all of the other accessory origami and whatnot after that. And so that's 5 years of pent-up angst and frustration and anger and a whole bunch of other negativity, which is finally getting a little bit of release with the DX Gojujin. This thing truly is, in my opinion, worthy of being part of the Super Sentai legacy. Unlike a lot of other robos we've had since 2006, this one is definitely worthy of it. Now, unfortunately, this is still very much a product of its time. It is very much an offspring of the limb swap era, and it is very much a victim of the world financial crisis, which is still going on even in 2011. So it does very much have a simplified transformation. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 limbs that swap just in this toy. As I mentioned earlier, it was weird that the Goju Rex's arms don't fold back and forth, but whatever they were thinking there, I don't know at this point. And the legs, too, also reflect it. It just has a single joint that just flips over and that's it. There's no panels that unfold and things don't get stored away or anything like that. The only thing that really gets stored is the head, the intersection of the train here, and the fist. Those are the only things that disappear at any point in any of the modes. Everything else is shown. There's a panel that sits right here, and it's just to cover the head, which is nice, because we don't get panels very often these days. And that is the mark of a Super Sentai Transformer. And so, even though it is a very awesome little toy, it is still very much a victim of its time. However, in my opinion, I do think that the Gojujin has enough momentum and appeal to it that this thing is going to expand beyond the fandom of Super Sentai. This hasn't happened very often in Super Sentai. It's usually very contained. It's the older collectors and it's the little kids and that's it. But it's always collectors and kids who are focused exclusively on Super Sentai. You don't really have collectors from the outside, other franchises and other niches that come in and pick these things up. That does not happen very often. It's not unheard of, but it doesn't happen very often. The DX Shinkano was very much an example of this. It had a very unique appearance and function to it. But the last time that I can name off the top of my head where a DX Super Sentai Robo had broad range appeal to it was the DX Go-Raijin from 2002. This thing was appealing to people who like insect mecha. It was appealing to people who like, was it Chogokin? You know, this was one of the last Super Sentai toys to have die-cast metal, because they stopped using it in 2002. They stopped using die-cast metal. So it was big, heavy, clunky armor. There was a lot of appeal to this toy, okay? And it was, even today, this is one of the most sought-after Super Sentai pieces. And I mean, ever. This is a holy grail for many people, not just Super Sentai collectors. And so I think that the Gojujin has enough energy behind it that it is also going to have that kind of extra fandom appeal to it, that it's going to be interesting to people beyond the fandom. So I would suggest that if you think it's expensive now, wait until 2012 when this thing gets put into the aftermarket. This thing is going to be even harder to find than it is now. I truly believe that. This thing, there's so much going for it. It's got the spring-powered missiles. It's got a drill arm. It has a huge 14-inch long dinosaur mode, which is crazy talk. It has a drill tank mode, which, again, you either like that or you don't. And just overall, it looks fantastic in all three modes. Yes, even Goju drill mode. You know what? I just drew a blank what I was going to say. Okay, it's time for me to stop talking. Thank you for sticking through me for this with the last, I don't know how long this is going to play. The other video is probably going to run, what, half hour? This one's probably going to run 40 minutes. I'm hoping I don't break 15 minutes with this closing commentary. Ava, shut up and end the video already. Okay, fine. Get this. I insist. It is beautiful. Beautiful. Amazing. Fantastic. I don't have the vocabulary to describe how good this thing is. Get it. Now. This is Ava Unit 4A for CollectionDX.com, signing off.
日の旗掲げ弾圧の海を駆け抜けろ一か八か無敵な風君を導く目指せ地図にない場所を幻なんかじゃないんだたった一つ自分だけの宝物誰も探してる確かめたいぜみんな同じじゃないからやりたいことをやってやれ命がけだぜ欲しけれその手で掴め Let's go let's go カイジャン Go go let's go let's 舵を取れ君の前に広がる海道なき道を行こう Let's go let's go カイジャン Go go let's go let's 嵐の中頑張る君のがむしゃらが今この世界を変えるぜ世界夢は無限大海賊戦隊豪快じゃ進め光を上げたなら自由の拳突き上げろガンガン魂不滅の日が君を呼んでる目指せまだ見ぬ新世界俺たち旅に出る理由そんなもんはない生まれた限りそれが生きてる証だ